counseling interview and characteristics of a counselor. First of all, introduction. The counseling is used in many purposes nowadays, such as choice of courses to be selected, the selection of occupation to be joined, the personal problems of an individual to be investigated, and marital choices to be made by a counselor who has been specifically trained for this purpose. The technique is now so commonly used even when it is dominated by subjectivity. It is in fact conducted by the technique of interview and is thus called counseling interview, which is a basic and dependable technique. The counseling interview is a face-to-face situation involving two persons in which counselor helps the counselee in gaining insight into his problems and assists him in solving the same. Elements in interview. All the interviews have three elements in common. First is a person-to-person relationship, then a means of communication with each other, and the last is an awareness on the part of at least one of the persons regarding the purpose of interview. Meaning and definitions. Counseling interview has been defined by different experts in different ways. According to Erickson, a counseling interview is a person-to-person relationship in which one individual with problems and needs turns to another person for assistance. According to Ruth Strang, the interview is the heart of counseling process to which other techniques are contributory. According to John G. Darley, a situation in which the client can gain better understanding of himself. The analysis of these definitions reveal the following elements. First is, in interview there is man-to-man relationship. Next, during the process of interview, the interviewer has the pre-knowledge of aims of interview. Interview is a way to establish a contact with one another. Interview is a purposeful face-to-face conversation. It is a method to study and to analyze a person's mental tendency, his internal ideas, problems, and feelings. Interview is also considered as the focal point of counseling process. Interview is a subjective method. Interview is more useful than the questionnaire method. Next is steps in interviewing. In order to make the interview meaningful and effective, the following steps are emphasized in it. First is preparation and establishment of rapport. The counselor should prepare himself with the detailed information from the record. First is schedule of interview program, physical setting, organized material, pre-interview conversation, and last is establishing rapport. The first is schedule of interview program. Schedule of the interview should be planned. The next is physical setting, a lighted room with cross ventilation, confidential atmosphere, and comfortable seating arrangement be selected for conducting of the counseling interview. The third is organized material. Before starting the interview, the counselor must have studied the material pertaining to the counselee and put that in an organized way. Next is pre-interview conversation. It should be held in the cordial atmosphere. The counselor speaks less and makes the counselee reveal his problem with confidence. The next is establishing rapport. Rapport is characterized by feeling of mutual respect, cooperation, friendliness, and mutual confidence. A sense of humor of a counselor can help to establish rapport earlier. It is essential that the cooperation of the counselee be attained or the results will not be the satisfactory. The counselor should avoid the side tracking of the issue and concentrate upon the main things. Next is unfolding of the problem. The interview should keep in mind the following points. First is observation, then listening, the last is questioning and talking. Observation. The counselor should very carefully observe the physical reactions, bodily tensions, blushing, excitability, defections, etc. of the counselee. Second is listening. The counselee should be allowed to project his feelings and attitudes, and the counselor should patiently listen to the counselee. Third is cautioning. A reasonable number of thought-provoking questions should be asked in a simple language and with a sweet tone and a pleasing voice. Next is talking. Adequate talking may be done by the counselor. Third point is the joint working out of the problem. The problem will have to be worked out both by the interviewer and the interviewee. The final decision is to be taken by the interviewee, who during the interview is made wiser enough to take his own decisions. The interview is not to thrust his opinion upon him. He should work on democratic lines. He should be a good listener also. The first is sympathy, next personal references and non-personal references. Sympathy. To increase the rapport with the client by showing the sympathy to the client. Give assurance that the problem will be solved. The next is personal references. Personal references should be got revealed with examples. Third one is non-personal references. There is a threat also. Threat given by the counselor or the interviewer. Temporary approval of the action of the counselee in order to encourage his feelings. The fourth is closing of the interview. Before the end of the interview, the child should have developed the feeling of having had a satisfying and genuinely helpful experience. The interview should be terminated tactfully when it is felt that more time is needed for constructive help. The ending should be planned, clear out, understanding for next meeting, which should be indefinite. Salient point of the interview should be immediately recorded. The interview should not end abruptly. Fifth point is the evaluation of the interview. The evaluation of the interview will be done from the following 4 points. First is regarding the setting of the interview. Next is regarding the interviewer, regarding the interviewee, regarding the outcome of interview, and the sixth point is follow-up of the interview. The interviewer is to ensure that the problem of the counselee has been solved and he is moving in the right direction and to take steps in the light of it. The next heading is the advantages of a counseling interview. The following are the advantages of counseling interview. First is interview develops insight in the client. Next is, this method can be used for solving various problems. Next is, the multiple objectives can be achieved by interview method. Complete understanding of the client can be sought through interview. Through interview, we can study attitudes, emotions, and ideas. In order to use interviews in different situations, it can be made flexible. It is very easy to use interview method. Informations received during interview are reliable. Interview method can be used in the case of unknown persons. Interview is the only method by which we can study a person's attitudes, feelings, reactions, etc. Interview method concentrates more on the problem. Limitations of counseling interview. This method has many drawbacks or limitations, which are as follows. First is, it is a subjective method. Individual feelings can also affect the interview. In the interview method, reliability and validity get minimized. Different social backgrounds also influence the interview. The method can eliminate the tension for a short duration only. Interview occurs in an artificial environment. In an interview, experts are required. There is scarcity of such experts. This method is very costly. This method consumes much time. In many situations, the interpretation of results and information received through interview is not easy. The next is characteristics of a counselor. General characteristics. Different thinkers have given the different general characteristics of the counselor. Some of them are given below. First is age, then experience, and the last is sex. Age. The counselor should be of a higher age than the counselee so as to create impression upon him. The next is experience. The experience, study, and participation in conferences, etc., develops the qualities of a good counselor. Sex. Generally, it is believed that men are better counselor, but sometimes women counselor can interact with women counselee in a better way. Something that the sex of a counselor does not make any difference in any way. Next characteristics is personality of the counselor. The personality of the counselor should be adjustable so as to develop the relationship with the counselee. Interest in rendering help, establishing a relationship, developing faith in the counselee, dignified relationship, and the first is interest in rendering help. Researches has shown that those counselors who work with the spirit of social service become better counselor. Second is establishing relationship. The counselor should be equipped with the values of establishing good relationship so as to be helpful to the counselee. Third is developing faith in the counselee. The counselor should be able to give an impression that the matter of the counselee should be kept strictly confidential. Dignified relationship. the counselor should establish dignified relationship so that counseling should pin his faith in him. The third characteristic is attitude and beliefs of the counselor. Counselor establishes relationship in accordance with his attitude and beliefs. Beliefs in dignity, man of values, acceptance, man of understanding. Beliefs in dignity. The counselor should have belief in equality and dignity of a counselee so as to give an impression that he is competent to solve the problems of the counselee. Next is man of values. The counselor should be man of values and should not create unnecessary illusion about himself. Acceptance. The counselor should be clear in his mind that he is to make the counselee wiser to tackle his own problems. Next is man of understanding. The counselor should be a man of understanding so that he can grasp what the counselee wants him to reveal. Next characteristics is counselor's skill. Counseling is a skill work which is to be learned by studying and experienced. It involves the following: rapport, apathy, attentiveness. First is rapport. This is to establish a type of relationship in such a way that the counselee can talk of his heart to him and come out about his hidden problem. Apathy. This is to come to the level of the counselee and think alike him. Attentiveness. The counselor should be wiser enough to concentrate his intention continuously on what and how the counselee speaks. Next characteristics is qualities of a effective counselor. Some qualities of a effective counselor are given below: experience of counselor, establishing counseling relationship, having control on oneself, experience of counselor. It has been found in research studies that a more experienced counselor is better than a lesser experienced counselor. Establishing counseling relationship. A successful counselor established good relationships with the counselee and understands his problem in a significant way. Having control on oneself. The counselor must be a dignified listener and should never get irritated with the irrelevant talks of the counselee. Qualifications of a counselor. First is educational and professional qualifications, experience, personal fitness. Educational and professional qualifications. Counseling is not the cup of tea of everybody. It needs specific type of training. Generally, a school counselor should be postgraduate in